Hey everybody, we're back and we are talking about an episode of the show, Murder at Midnight. Again, remember Murder at Midnight we talked about before. This is one that was created and directed, produced by Anton Leader, who was a real powerhouse in, I believe, 60s, 70s television. Ton of things. He also worked on The Twilight Zone and Murder at Midnight, along with, believe, Suspense. They were both precursors to the Twilight Zone. Um, and this is a really great story of theirs. This one is The 13th Floor. It's written by Winifred Wolfe, who was a Boston writer born in 1923, I believe. And she wrote for several other mystery and suspense shows, wrote a ton of episodes for Cloak and Dagger, several episodes of suspense, and of course, The 13th Floor for Murder at Midnight. And The 13th Floor is a really interesting, that's one of those themes that you'll just see countless short horror stories that center around the 13th floor. And I mean, obviously, Twilight Zone, Tower of Terror, that same basic idea. Um, but in this particular one, Winifred Wolfe's version of the 13th floor involves a woman who we find out turned in her ex lover for a $5,000 reward. He was a crime boss, and when she is getting home, we kind of catch from her conversation with the man, the elevator guy, that everybody knows that she turned him in, and everybody knows that she's living off this reward money. So people don't quite respect her. And as she gets off the elevator, she goes to her apartment. She finds it's locked, and then realizes that she's looking at apartment 1307 rather than 1407. So she's on a floor that doesn't exist in her own building. And as soon as she realizes this, the door opens, and who is it behind the door? But her ex convict boyfriend, who has escaped from jail and come back just to exact his revenge. Or did he? Because again, this floor doesn't exist, and the entire time they keep you guessing, is this going on in her mind or is it not? And of course, as every Murder at Midnight episode goes, by the stroke of midnight, someone gonna die, which would really make it easier for all the coroners to determine the time of death in this world. But it's a really interesting story. I think you should check it out. And I tried to kind of look up, you know, anytime I look at these, I always try and go down the rabbit hole of the actual concepts of the stories. Because one thing that I love about these is there's so many ideas that you'll see where you're like, okay, I've heard this done before. Like the 13th floor, I've heard countless stories that involve that. Probably the earliest one that I'd ever heard of, the poem by Ogden Nash, The 13th Floor, which he lists off actual names of killers, actual names of victims, and true crimes from the past. And he depicts all of these victims dancing on the 13th floor in the afterlife with all of their victims hanging off them, kind of weighing them down. Um, and that was written in 1955. I thought that was the earliest. It's not, because this episode is like 1946. And that is one of the things that I really love about radio plays. Maybe not so much with CBS Radio Mystery Theater because, 74, on. I mean, it's a little later. But these ones that come in like, the 20s to the 40s, it's crazy because you'll listen to a story and you'll be like, well, I've heard that idea before. And then you look at the date and you realize, dude, they were doing that idea like one of the first times. And it's really, really, really cool. And Winifred was a very prolific writer. She was one of those people that ended up being a very famous television writer as well. And she was one of the head writers for, oh man, it was either All My Children or Days of Our Lives. I can't remember. I can't believe I don't remember it. It was that, and I think Somerset. There were two huge, you know, um, of those like daytime soap operas that she was the head writer for. And that may not be, pulp, it may not be mystery, but one thing about pulp writers, they are always, always prolific. They came from a time of no immediate gratification. I mean, I make a video talking about a story somebody else writes, and I love seeing all the little likes that come up throughout the day. These people were writing story after story, throwing them out into the void, sometimes never even hearing the broadcast of it on the radio or when it came on TV, because guess what? They were writing the next story. I mean, they are cut from a different cloth from creators today, and I love that tenacity that they had, and it's always something that I really respect and love, and probably am guilty about over romanticizing with pulp writers. But please check out The 13th Floor, Murder at Midnight. Almost called it Murder by Experts. A lot of midnights going on. Murder at Midnight, The 13th Floor. And as Mitch Hedberg said, all you people on the 14th floor, you know what floor you're really on.